This artwork is the Baptistère of St. Louis, a basin made of brass with inlaid silver and gold. It was made by this artist from today's area of Egypt and Syria, dating to between 1320 to 1340 CE. It was commissioned by a wealthy person to serve as a banqueting vessel or basin for hand washing. It ended up in use in France. The basin received its name in the 18th century and was so called because it was used as the baptismal item for several royal children, including Louis XII. A common symbol found on the basin that hints at its intriguing history is the fleur de lis, which is ultimately a symbol of the French family. However, historians have found that this was the symbol of the Mamluk sultans as well. These Mamluks were warrior slaves in Egypt who asserted their independence and took control of several Muslim regions, establishing a dynasty from 1250 to 1517 when Ottomans conquered them. Their political and military dominance led to wealth, allowing for a flourishing artistic culture that made them known as extraordinary craftsmen. They were known especially for their textile work and for their metalwork, with a strong emphasis on their use of brass, which this artwork is made of. Normally, vessels like this would have large bands of calligraphy, yet this one doesn't. Instead, this one is filled with figures and animals and decorative patterning. The only part that is not completely covered is the bottom few inches of the walls of the inside of the basin. Even the floor of the basin is completely covered in decoration. Starting from the floor, there is a very abstract pattern of sea animals. These are very complex, interconnected designs similar to tile work. Areas of black paste are present along with eels and silver at the bottom. Above that, we see a continuous band of animals that parade around the inner wall, and then a wide frieze of men on horseback, interspersed by animals, as well as medallions, figures that are clearly rulers, and a coat of arms. Figures on the exterior depict scenes from the Mamluk court, especially the sultans, wearing clothing characteristic of their status and bearing symbols of their rank. There are two rulers who sit frontally. They both hold goblets. The figures in between seem to be hunting, but there are also scenes of battle present. There are severed limbs and a decapitated head, clearly demonstrating violence. The largest frieze is on the exterior. There are 4 figures in roundels, each on horseback, located on the exterior of the basin. Each are slightly different in their features and actions they are performing. 2 of these figures are hunting. One is drawing a bow and arrow, and the last one seems to be processing, perhaps holding a club. There are figures on either side of the roundels, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, all in procession toward the royal figures. One appears to be holding a leopard by a leash. Another seems to raise a goblet in one hand, perhaps in celebration, and holding a vessel in another. The iconography is very complicated, and art historians have not untangled it yet. In addition, many of their meanings, such as its function, haven't been interpreted much by historians, causing much of the meaning to be lost. There is a little bit of Arabic inscription, which is the signature of the artist. It is found right under the rim, repeated 6 times, along with rich imagery. A unicorn, elephant, leopard, and an antelope are present, all running and jumping. There's such movement and energy, not only in the decorative forms, which move in and out, but also in the figures. Kiki Smith's Lying with the Wolf is an American piece made with ink and pencil on paper in 2001. It is a large-scale work on paper without a nice finish. Wrinkles are present, demonstrating the sketchiness of the piece. There is a great amount of negative and undefined space, and no horizon line. Overall, this is a reclining female nude with little to no modeling. It references the tradition of the female reclining nude, but transforms it. It isn't sexualized, she doesn't stare out, and she reclines with an animal. It is a feminist approach to popular folktales, questioning why women are always near death or in danger in fairy tales, such as Snow White and Little Red Riding Hood. In her artwork, the association among women and nature is victimless and symbiotic. In the past, women have been seen to be presented in nature as well, perhaps implying that they have a deep understanding and connection with it. The act of bonding between a woman and nature is portrayed in Smith's work, with the subject of a wolf and a woman. The wolf nuzzles her affectionately, much like she cuddles with a dog. She strokes his fur, demonstrating that she has tamed the wolf's wildness. Both figures appear to nurture one another, and they are not stereotypically predator and prey. It's hard to pick who would have been the prey anyway, due to the possible vulnerability of the woman and the animal's power of nature. Kiki Smith herself grew up in an artistic family in an old Victorian house in New Jersey. It captured her imagination and inspired her to think of fairy tales, which ultimately helped inspire this artwork. Her references and inspiration for this work includes Little Red Riding Hood, a story that is normally quite violent but is now rendered sweet, and Saint Genevieve, which is associated with animals and her ability to domesticate wolves. Some of her common subjects found in her other artworks include fairy tales, women, animals, and Victorian literature. Common themes found between these two artworks include relationships among humans and animals, cross-cultural references, and stylization. The Baptistry of St. Louis clearly portrays a relationship of humans and animals through men riding on horses, the ownership of exotic pet animals, such as a leopard, and the combination of both animal and human forms. Animals by itself are seen on the bottom of the basin, and humans are seen by themselves among the rulers and those of the court. Kiki Smith's Lying with a Wolf directly demonstrates the relationship between animals and humans in a very warm and sweet way. There appears to be a close bond among the two, similar to one having a pet. Cross-cultural references include her inspiration from fairy tales that originated in Europe, away from her birthplace, and in a time that is way before her own. Concerning the Baptistry of St. Louis, cross-cultural references can be seen in its contextual evidence, in which it was created in a completely different place than where it ended up in use. Although the history surrounding the shift isn't too clear, regardless, this artwork was in two different places. Finally, both pieces depict animals and humans in a very stylized sense, with little to no modeling, and simplified anatomy. Each have their own stylistic design unique to the artist and culture that created it.